I'm wrong, but the person you were interviewing was Mod Ian.
Well, yeah, the first person I employed was Mod Ian, who still works with us today, and in fact, he's now the head of our audio department.
There we go. So first person we ever employed.
He's talking later, in fact.
Yeah, he is indeed. He's talking in the Dungeoneering chat about audio. So, what sort of role were you playing at this point, Paul?
What, during the interviews?
Yes.
During the interviews, I was in for a little bit of it, but me and Constant had to pop out because we needed some furniture for our office. So we actually went to Staples and picked up some desks, and then we came in and we started setting up some desks while some people were
so whilst I was trying to interview people, Tim and Constant were
in the same room.
In the same room, just screwing desks together.
And that actually carried on as somewhat of a tradition in the early days.
Yeah, exactly. So we had a tradition, you know, because we didn't have any support staff, and I wasn't putting people's desks together for them. So when someone started the company, they were given their desk in flat pack form, their chair in flat pack form, and their computer in bits as well. And the first thing we had to do was work out people together. There's an early test to see if they got the practical applications.
So, what was it like dealing with the player base in those early days, Paul? Did you have a lot of opportunity for sort of one-on-one interaction? Or?
I think in a way, I certainly knew a lot more of the player base. I mean, I still try and interact with the various players on a one-on-one basis, but these days it's so much bigger that if I go into the game and talk to people, people still don't think I'm going into the game and talking to people. Back in the early days, the game was so small that I didn't actually know the majority of the high-level players, certainly the players who were playing on a regular basis, so it did feel a lot more close-knit. I could actually go and speak to everybody. I mean, I knew all the high-level players. I knew the troublemakers quite closely as well, so almost friends with some of the scammers.
Yeah, we had a weird relationship with the scammers back then, because it was such a small community. There was no outright, you know, the people being, scamming sort of knew they shouldn't be, but they spoke to us, they told us what they were doing. This was a list one of the scammers at the time actually sent me, telling me exactly what he was doing and how. We thought this was quite fun. This is a list of the scams that were going on in the early days of RuneScape Classic. One of the exciting things about this list is if you look at the amounts involved. Back then, 2,000 GP was a big scam. So there's been quite a lot of inflation for the economy since then.
Cool. The house agent, they can see my house for 5,000 gold pieces.
Cool. So, let's move on and talk about converting to RuneScape 2. I remember you talking at the time that you were talking about trying to get an engine working on the Gameboy Advance.
Yeah, so as a complete random aside, nothing to do with RuneScape, I had a Gameboy Advance, and I quite fancied turning my hand to trying to write some games on that. And I had a game I'd written, this was written as a browser game in Java, which I fancied trying to port to the Game Boy. So I was trying to port this game to the Game Boy. And the Game Boy Advance had no 3D technology, and none of the games were 3D, so I was trying to make it do 3D, so I spent a huge amount of work hand optimizing the 3D engine. Had a lot of interest from publishers who wanted to publish it, but we were doing all the development basically on dodgy sort of tools as a homebrew type kit as opposed to official stuff. And when we tried to actually recruit developers, they all went, we can't use this stuff, where's the debugger? We need a proper tool chain. So we gave up on that idea, but I realised that the 3D engine was actually quite decent, so I ported it back to the PC, and it became the basis of the RuneScape engine, the 3D engine for RuneScape 2. So RuneScape 2 came about because of a failed GBA project, and I ended up with a 3D engine I wanted to use.
Cool. So here we've got some early shots of some experimentation that was going on with RuneScape Classic, some sort of repositioning of the skills and possibly inventory, and that's actually how we ended up with it in RuneScape 2.
It's a sort of intermediate phase between RuneScape 2 and RuneScape Classic.
So just quickly, if you had your time again, lads, what would you have done differently?
Well, the various of the things which we put in and then took out again would have probably been done a little bit differently. The first attempt at replacing the wilderness with a bounty hunter crater that got scrapped, so we wouldn't bother even making that in the first place.
Okay.
Yeah, I think another thing we'd have done is planned a little bit more. Some of the things we put in, like Camelot, didn't really reflect any sort of cohesive storyline. These days, now when we make a game, we plan it in meticulous detail, which is more work up front, but in the long term, it saves you an awful lot of time. I think if we were making RuneScape, if we could go back in time and make RuneScape again, I'd probably make it half the time, because
changing your mind is probably the most time-consuming thing you can possibly do when you're making a game.
Cool. Right, so as I said earlier, we spent a lot of time on the forums and looking at emails to try and work out the kind of questions that you guys had for Paul and Andrew. I've just got a selection here that I'm just going to ask on your behalf, if you don't mind. So tell me, are you still working at Jagex? If you are, what are you doing? Obviously I know this because I work. As I say, I'm asking on your behalf.
Yes, I'm still working at Jagex. Currently I'm working in the RuneScape content team, so I am actually working on a day-to-day basis on updates to the game. I've made quests recently. I've made things like Defender of Varrock, and I've made Curse of Arav, I've made Shooting Star. For a bit I actually ended up in sort of managing people within the company as more and more people got into the company, but really what I wanted to do was develop games, so I've actually, rather than just telling other people what to do and what not to do, so I've actually managed to step back and actually start producing content myself again. That's what I'm good at and enjoy. So.
And Andrew, what
and I'm in a sort of I do still work for Jagex, first question. I'm in a sort of roving role where I sort of go around all the different teams in the company and sort of like a glorified QA, if anything, sort of making sure that, you know, all the lessons that we've learned over the years, 10 years of running RuneScape, are actually being applied to everything we're doing. We've got staff of all ages, and we want to make sure that things that have gone wrong, the lessons are learned, things that have gone right, the lessons are learned, all the design experience. So I do a lot of time basically consulting on design and trying to make sure everyone knows what they're doing.
Cool. So, quickly, tell me what content you're most proud of.
I like my herb loss skill.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd say I'm most proud of the fire making skill, because in terms of ratio of hours spent producing versus player hours wasted, it spent about 30 minutes making that skill.
I remember reading a topic in the forums about the early censor, and there was something with the word cabbage that kept appearing. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that was a bug that accidentally went live. The sort of early attempts of the word filter had sort of quite a complicated algorithm that ran over the text and tried to spot.
Whoa.
Spot. It's a cabbage!
It's a cabbage!
Things that had a bug. If it went wrong, you printed out cabbage, which was actually the error message you could use when it had gone wrong.
Oh,
and I accidentally launched it, and everything you said in the game, it always errored. So you couldn't say anything except cabbage for several hours. Everyone was wondering cabbage. And you couldn't say anything else, which I thought was deliberate, but it wasn't.
Cabbage. Awesome. So, as I say, we're running out of time now, sadly. But I just wanted to give you a bit of a taster for something that Paul's working on at the moment. You might have heard about it. It's something to do with something called the Mahjarrat. So, Paul, do you want to just quickly talk about some of the concept art you can see?
So this is some of the early concept art for my next Mahjarrat quest, which is going to be joined together some different elements of various quests which you've played before. So it's going to be a continuation of Temple of Censor, and also it's going to carry on from Wild Gothic Sleeps as well. And you can also see that there is Dragonkin. These are concept arts for Dragonkin, which means that some of the stuff which was done in Tale of Two Cats and is also linking into this quest as well. So I'm bringing together quite a few elements. Here we've got, apparently this is Mahjarrat. Now you might think Mahjarrat are skull-headed creatures, and they normally are. But once upon a time, long ago in the history of RuneScape, they used to look like that. But because they've been very long-lived, slowly their skin has disappeared, fallen off their bodies, and it's sort of left them skull-headed. But that's how they used to look once upon a time. They're sort of magically keeping themselves going with just their bones and stuff.
Cool. Awesome. Just quickly, there was one question that was about the runes, where the images of the runes came from. And I chatted, we were practicing this about a week ago, and we were chatting away, and I asked where the images come from, and they just kind of looked at me funny, and they're just like, well, we just picked the ones that make sense for the rune.
We thought, well, we'll do a water rune, so we'll do a drop of water.
Yeah, seems to make sense. Well, there we go.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Super, very insightful. There are plenty of opportunities throughout the day for your Q&As. We've got lots of different one-to-one sessions happening, so check the information that we gave you to give you kind of heads up and times for those. Right, you're more than welcome obviously to remain in Mahjarrat until the next session begins in about 15 minutes. If you want, the bar is here, please refresh yourselves there. If you're leaving, please remember to take your belongings with you. Maybe you might fancy a little bit jousting downstairs, that's occurring currently, or even get your tarot cards read. If you're quick, there is a sword fighting display about to begin in about 5 minutes, but please remain here if you so wish, and we'll see you in about 10 or 15 minutes, alright?